Thank you, George, and thank you, Beloo. Now we move on to our first panel discussion of the morning on contemporary social issues in India, chaired by Mehra, and she's surrounded by George Vrekhem and Jamshed. I would like to invite the chairperson to give some brief introductory remarks, to moderate the discussions, and to invite questions from the seminar audience, and also summarize the discussions at the end of the panel.
Okay, I rushed through my last speech and now I'm going to rush through again. Thank you. Well, in the last session, George and I both talked about some ideals, some futuristic vision, something that may be yet to come. But in this session, we come to a little bit more ground reality, so to speak, and talk about some of the contemporary realities, contemporary social issues in India, as we've titled this session. Since I've been assigned this role, what I thought I'll do is I will just read a little story first. And after the story, I would just like to open up and invite my co-panelists to share a few comments or remarks on what they see as some of the contemporary social issues in India might be, and then open it up to the larger group for questions, comments, and insights, especially answers. If you have any solutions to contemporary social problems in India, great. The attempt is to try to see some of these problems, causes, as well as possible solutions or ways to address the solutions. Maybe solutions is too grand, in the light of what we know and understand from Sri Aurobindo's vision or thought. So let me begin with a story, and it's a contemporary story because after all this session is about contemporary social issues. So it's a story about contemporary India. But it's a story also from one of the most ancient traditions of India, that's the Panchtantra. So it's a story titled Panchtantra 2007. Probably some of you know this. The Elephant Who Became a Tiger. Once upon a time, in a hot and humid jungle, though one with stretches known better for heat and dust, there lived an old elephant. She was a big, slow, lumbering elephant with a long but not always happy history, and it was widely accepted that she had known better days. She was prone, the other animals knew, to lie back and scratch herself and talk nostalgically about the glorious past, her great accomplishments in times long gone by. But when the other animals listened, they did not forget that that was really, really a long time ago. After all, for some time, the elephant's own stretch of the jungle had come under the sway of a fierce lion from far away. Despite her size and strength, the elephant had proved no match for the lion and had been cowed into submission until the day when the lion, tired of subduing distant lands, had finally slunk away. Despite this experience, the elephant tended to lecture the other animals, secure in the conviction that she had all the answers. She would raise her trunk and trumpet her views about the right way to do things, the correct manner of living, the ideal principles according to which to organize the jungle, and the other animals would nod politely, trying not to point out that the elephant herself hadn't done all that well, and she was visibly becoming a bit flea-infested. She certainly was not the strongest animal in the jungle, for her way of doing things meant that she did not grow as big and strong as she might have. The other animals, not entirely kindly, spoke somewhat patronizingly of the elephant's rate of growth. She was large, of course, and that meant she could never be entirely ignored. As she came steadily, unblinkingly, and unthinkingly on, the smaller animals at least had to get out of the way. But the number of animals who did as she did and lived as she told them to dwindled with each passing season. In another part of the jungle to the southeast, another group of animals was faring much better than our elephant. They were a sleek band of tigers, their stripes glistening in the sun that seemed inevitably to shine on their patch of forest. The tigers were lithe and well-muscled. They ate well, they bounded about, and they grew strong and contented. While tourists still came occasionally to photograph the elephant, the tigers attracted swarms of visitors who took pictures and films which framed the tiger's fearful symmetry. The visitors also gushed about the greenness of the grass the tigers grazed on, brought them ever more food and water, and stroked their backs till their coats glittered. If the elephant noticed what was going on, she pretended not to. Far from wondering what shoulder and what art might have twisted the sinews of the tiger's heart, she acted as if the good fortune of such small little creatures was of no consequence for an animal as large and important as an elephant. But then, one day she fell ill. She lay down and bellowed until the veterinarians from the big animal hospital came running to see what the matter was. And when they had examined her, they told her the sad truth. She would have to change the way she was living, allow others into her jungle patch, and pay attention to the needs of other animals, needs she could help them fulfill, or she would soon have to sell her tusks to be made into ivory trophies for the mantelpieces of distant humans. "My tusks?" she exclaimed in consternation and horror. "I will never sell my tusks." "Why then," the vet said, "you must change. You must become more like the tigers." The elephant blanched, which looked particularly awful under the grey pallor of her mortal skin, but said nothing. She lumbered heavily to her feet and plodded uncertainly towards her new destiny. Slowly, very slowly, but with the deliberateness for which she was known, she began to change. As the seasons passed, the other animals began to notice that there was something different about the old elephant. She brushed off the fleas that had begun feasting on her. A certain sprightliness entered her step. She still moved with that familiar elephantine gait, but there was a pronounced sway from side to side now, as though she was prepared to entertain all possibilities. The old fat began to give way to muscle. Her ears flapped in a way that suggested she was, surprised, actually listening, instead of merely lecturing others. She dipped her trunk into clean water and sprayed it liberally on herself, washing away decades of dirt and mud. She began to grow, and how she began to grow. Soon the visitors started crossing over from the tiger sanctuary to take a look, and they started chattering to each other in excitement, since they could not believe what they were seeing. For appearing on the elephant's back, at first faint but soon clearly visible, was the unmistakable sign of stripes. Large black stripes swirling confidently around her torso. And then, even as the visitors gawped with disbelief, the elephant's dirty gray skin began to acquire a distinctly golden hue. There was no doubt about it. The elephant was becoming a tiger. Miracle of miracles, all the animals came to look and admire. Some were afraid. Imagine the strength of a tiger within the size of an elephant. What would happen to the rest of the jungle? Others said there was no reason to worry. Whatever stripes she grew, the elephant would always be an elephant at heart. And still others said, it can't last, the stripes will fade soon enough, and we will again see the comforting sight of our old, plodding, stumbling friend. Which of the animals would be right? Who knows? Tune in a few years from now when we will recount the next episode of our favorite animal fable. So, this is few years now, certainly 3 years from when the story was written by a very contemporary voice in India, Shashi Tharoor, many of you may know, one of our young politicians, and a global Indian, a phrase that we probably hear all the time. So, as you probably understood the story, who is this elephant which is slowly turning into a tiger? But in India, we also have this tradition of Durga, Shakti, which rides a tiger, which rides a lion. So if the tiger is being prepared, the ride is being prepared slowly as per this particular view, we also need the Shakti to ride on this tiger, to rein in this tiger. And as the elephant is slowly turning into tiger, as this author says, as the changing of skin is happening, all the fleas that are falling and all the dirt and mud that had been lying on the skin that is falling, that's nothing but all the social, economic, political problems that we see in our country now. So I thought this might be a good way to open it up and to see what are some of the fleas and dust and mud that is being thrown around as this giant elephant is slowly becoming into a tiger. Okay, Shakti will come later also. But so at this point, I thought I'll invite my co-panelists and see what they say as some of this transformation that may be happening and what are some of those issues that we could talk about.
Well, it's a beautiful story, symbolic, and the contemporary social issues that we have in India, or the urgent problems that we face in Indian society. One can say many, but I'll just list a few. That caste and religious-ridden vote bank politics, left-wing extremism of Naxal problem that we have, the Hindu-Muslim divide. Now there is an issue of women reservation giving more rights to women and many. When we look at these problems, or we read the newspaper, read the TV channels, it is very, very depressing. We look as if India has no solution and it's at the absolute lowest at that. When you compare this situation with the vision that Sri Aurobindo has given for India, Sri Aurobindo says India will be the guru of the nations. Guru of the nation means a leader in the nation who will bring a spiritual age in the years to come. We find a huge gap. Why is it that India has to face all its problems in the most and the worst acuteness? Mother has an answer to it. Mother says, if India has to become a guru of the nation, it should first solve the problem by itself. And that's why the problems at its most acuteness are given to India, and it has to be solved. We see in the TV the debates that takes place, especially the news channels, about the problems in that. And we find these are mental solutions that are sought out. And when the mental solutions are sought out, there are pro and against. And literally, both are right at the same situation. Because the mental solutions or the vital solutions are not the true solutions. The true solution is in the spiritual way of solving it. And this is what India has to go about. We are on an evolutionary process. At present, the evolutionary process is at its mid-stage where we do not see the end which is going to come, as beautifully pointed out in the story. But we have to bring a solution. In light of Sri Aurobindo's and Mother's of these problems, in Hindu-Muslim unity specifically, Sri Aurobindo has given a beautiful summarization, which can be the initial stage. I'll just read out few lines from that passage. Of one thing may be certain, that Hindu-Mohammedan unity cannot be affected by political adjustment or Congress flatteries. It must be sought deeper down in the heart and in the mind. From where the cause of disunion are, the remedies must be sought. The problems are in the mind, that we do not, the Hindus and Muslims do not trust each other. And it is there it should be done. It is in the heart where the hatredism has solidified. And the solution he gives is that for the mind solution, that misunderstanding is the most fruitful cause of our difference. And what is the solution for that? That we must have is, Sri Aurobindo suggests that we shall make it a main part of our work to place Muhammad and Islam in a new light before our readers, to spread a justier view of Mohammedan history and civilization. In the heart, where he says, where we have hatredism towards each other, Sri Aurobindo says that it is the love that compels love, and the strength conciliates the strong. We must extend the unfaltering love of a patriot to our Muslim brother. And he says, remembering always that in him too Narayan dwells, in him too our mother has been given a permanent, Mother India has given a permanent place for them. Then the last line is beautiful. Intellectual sympathy can only draw together. The sympathy of the heart can alone unite. But the one is a good preparation for the other. Regarding the problems of Naxalites and other, the problem of the Indian society for ages has been that we have neglected nearly 25% or nearly 25% of our population. And here, if we have to be inclusive enough to bring all them into our society, we must remember that they are, in spirituality is the divine present in each one of us, and we have to accept them, and this is how the solution can have. But we being in the mid stage of evolution, we may feel depressed, but positively India will become the guru of the nations.
I was not aware that when this was organized, I would have to talk about this. I was just asked for a contribution as a presentation, because when it comes to this subject, I, being a foreigner, become very prudent. The reason is quite simple. When I write, I always can take a step back. But when I talk, what you say is directly heard and understood by an audience. And I am a foreigner. Foreigners in India have no rights, not a single right. And a misunderstanding may bring me to a court somewhere and serve me with a quit notice after 40 years to go back to where I come from, which I have more or less forgotten.
But George, I think this is...
Wait, let me continue.
Yeah, no, the perspective that you will bring is really important also. So I just wanted to add that.
That's very kind of you. So I have been here for some time, 40 years, and just imagine that in these 40 years, the population of India has doubled. When I came here, there were 550 million Indians. Now there are 1,100 and maybe even more Indians. This by itself is such an incredible problem, because it cannot be the intention of evolution to populate the earth and India with standing place only. And of course, in the time that I have been in Auroville, between Auroville and Pondicherry, a road which I often take, there are at least 4 or 5 new villages. This makes the race for the rupee urgent for every individual who has to survive, who has to create a family, and who has sons and daughters himself. Still, I will always believe in India because of what Sri Aurobindo and the Mother have said, and because of the kindness and the incredible intelligence of all the races of the people in Mother Bharat. And I also see, in the time that I have been here, and I have followed the developments from quite nearby, that India at critical moments has always been saved in the most impossible and unforeseeable ways. For instance, when India was on the verge of bankruptcy, it was saved by two people, Narasimha Rao and Mohan Singh. Two old people who took all the necessary measures and saved India from bankruptcy some years ago. This is only one example, it happens all the time. There is something beyond everything that has made that now India is one of the forces in the world, not in the future, at the present. And you can read articles everywhere in all magazines and publications in the whole world that the East may make such a jump that it will leave the West behind. This was unthinkable when I came here. I think from my perception as a white Negro among colored people, that it is very important that India leaves behind the complex of the colonial times, that it stands up for what it is, that it assimilates its past and leads towards the future. There, of course, there is one thing, as we are here in an Aurobindonian atmosphere, in an Aurobindonian environment, that I would ask the question, in how far is the Aurobindonian vision being spread in India? About 20 years ago, I had two seminars with Kiri Joshi in Delhi. Now, Kiri Joshi is an IAS secretary officer, and he had been my boss as the registrar of the ashram school when I was a captain of physical education. And Kiri Joshi at that time was the assistant of the Minister for Education and Human Development. So I asked him, is there any sign that the educational view, and I must thank Professor Srinivasan for his presentation here. He really is one of these persons who carry the hope of India in this way, as you, madam, have always also said. I asked Kiri Joshi, is there any sign that this educational vision is being spread in India? And he, who knew the whole educational situation in India, who had all vice-chancellors and professors, and who had been himself a teacher, he answered quite simply, none. So that is where we are. When we are among ourselves, we are, of course, persuaded of everything we have been reading and of what we are trying to become. But then there is the big question, how is it spread in India? And this is a big question because it is closely connected with the future of India. Because the life divine is the foundation of Sri Aurobindo's vision as situated at the time that he wrote it for the future. And he formulated it very clearly against the past which had to be left behind. And that past included the Buddha. That past included the illusionism. He has written several chapters against that, because what we have to do now is to take up the present and to go towards something for the earth, for humanity, as I have partially explained in my integration of the 4 Varnas. This is so important, and it is something that is totally foreign, according to my opinion, in the present general way things are seen in India. So the question is, how do you spread this? This is the master question for me to be answered in a seminar like this. How do you spread it? Because trying to found a new religion. How do you spread it without formulating what Sri Aurobindo and the mother have seen in dogmas? How do you spread it in a practice? When a student from Kolkata, from Mumbai, from Delhi comes to you and says, I am interested, what can I do? How do you answer that question? What can I do? And that is one of the important things that the people who are responsible for the mission of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, that I find an answer how to bring it to the others, how to bring it into society. I think the first answer of the mother, as when she said to an ashramite who asked in 72 at the time of the centenary of Sri Aurobindo, who asked, Mother, there are many people who are going to come here. How can we communicate what we are trying to live here, what we are trying to work out? And the mother said quite simply, by being it. This is one side, which is the fundamental side. But there is also the intellectual side. Don't forget that Sri Aurobindo wrote his Arya, including the Life Divine and all the other works, for the intellectual side of his work. How do you communicate that? How do you talk about Sri Aurobindo and the mother to others? And how are you able to stand up against others to defend and explain that vision, which is at least as important and fundamental as anything else, materialism, man-illusionism, man-Buddhism, man-communism, and so on, that can be found elsewhere. For me, that is the fundamental question, not only for India, but for the world. But India, of course, represents something that is now being spread, which I am trying to collaborate a little in the work, just to take up everything that is being taught, compare it with what Sri Aurobindo and the mother have said, and their vision is so broad, so vast, always to my big astonishment and almost ecstatic discovery, is so big and so broad that it has something to say for everybody and to answer everybody reasonably, quietly, in an Aurobindonian way.
Well, sorry to interrupt, George, but
otherwise I go on for a while.
yes, and I would like to request Chandra to just allow us a few minutes just so that we can have few comments and questions maybe from the audience. So anything you would like to say? Can any of them give them the microphone? Just speak into the mic, just so that everybody can hear. Because really some big questions have come up here, so let's see.
Jyoti Meenakshi. I'm working in BSNL. I was started a small school for children. So, once we are divided due to religion, first problem at the time of independence. Next it to caste. Now the problem is moved to languages. We are, due to languages, we are divided India according to our languages. But we are now fighting for language, the states are divided. But it is the correct time for us to work together. In which media we are going to present for the children. So in Tamil Nadu, we are speaking about Tamil. We are Telugu, like that. So from the childhood itself, we have to teach all first Indian language. Then southern region means Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, like that. And then Hindi to unite, and then English, and then like that we have to unite. But still we have to work for that. The program should be given to us to help the children. We are there, small schools are running. So all medias are English media only. So small village people can't study that. So first we have to unite the heart through languages. Language is a barrier.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, that's certainly a big issue.
With my limited knowledge, I'd like to point out the root cause of social malaise is not men. It is only due to bad politics. If you see, we people, I mean, we belong to different religions. When we meet, we don't really hate each other. In fact, that unity comes automatically. Whereas I feel it is due to, because, you know, we see Yatha Raja, Tatha Praja. Even when you, I mean, history is a witness to that. If Vikramaditya's period was the golden period, it was, the credit goes to only the king. So I feel it is due to bad politics. We don't have value-based politics, a political system in our country. In the name of democracy, we allow the criminals to stand for the thing and they govern us. We talk about all the problems only in seminars, but intellectually we are very strong. What we need is we should all come together and root out this, what we call criminal politics, and ensure that proper people they come in. So we will not have any problem at all. No nationalite, no language problem, nothing will be there. It is due to their selfish motives only we are actually facing all the problems. That's what I feel. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I'm Satish, as I said. I think in India, basic attitude is the key component which is missing. Aptitude is another component which is missing. Rather, apart from population, pollution, poverty, which gaps between rich and poor, even prosperity is a problem. And even to take a peaceful life is a problem of India today. And urgent need social network and relationship management. Very simple.
Yes, from the back benches.
Yeah, Anand asks me to say something. I don't know what. I'm Surendra Gupta. I'm trying my bit to translate some of what Sri Aurobindo has said into the Indian politics. Through an organization, a virtual organization called Golden India. The lady who has said that there is the malaise which can be clubbed into bad politics. Yes, we do agree. But behind that, there is something called human nature. And if you look at for 5 seconds at the face of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, they don't seem to exclude anything. They are there to be able to reach out. As they said, the light has not gone to two fields, commerce and politics. So we have to look into the human nature. And it is very true that we do talk a lot in seminars, and some of them that I have attended, we really do not come out with common statements from illumined souls as to the direction of an action plan in a time frame. Time has an essence, and sometimes we do not look at it. It can shuffle up the priorities. It can shuffle up the activity and the consequences that we do. Everything being right. If you just take the time into an account, Samay, Kal, or whatever, there aren't too many temples for time also. But as Sri Aurobindo said in 1935, that after a time, things have to be changed in ashram. Is very specific words. And I have gone around, I have discussed a lot on internet. I'm still waiting for an authoritative answer, and I was hoping at SACAR with Anand's a very close friend, I could get an answer as to what he meant when he said after some time things have to change. What things, after what time, and why? Thank you.
Okay. Well, we certainly have to take time into consideration, and I think we probably would have to end this session, right, Chandra? You're the timekeeper. So I know the topic was huge enough, but maybe we can continue to have some of these conversations more informally during lunch or some other breaks or something like that. Fine? So thank you, everyone, and thank you, George and Jamshed.